From my point of view, there's maybe two or three things that I think are really important. One is boiling down what is the essence of the mission. So understanding what it is, because certainly most missions around the world, and UNMISS was no exception. We had a 13-page mission, which was given to us as part of the resolution. That's how long the resolution was. And it was very interesting when I arrived in South Sudan, when I talked to people. I mean, everybody had their own understanding of what it meant. And we ended up actually, I remember I was doing a video transmission to New York, and I was explaining what the mission was about. And the next day I had two or three people come up to me, people who were in the room with me, and said, "Thank you for explaining it, because I never really understood what UNMISS was exactly doing." And these weren't the human rights people or the civil affairs people. These were the electricians and the aviation guys and the engineers and everybody else. And they wanted to know, how do they fit into this bigger picture of what a mission is? It prompted us to go on and do a whole bunch of different let's do some work on all the various leadership pillars in our organization. And we ended up coming up with the idea that basically the two things that we do are protecting civilians and building durable peace. And they were the two pillars that supported 13 pages of a resolution and what the mission was about. So number one, what I would say is understanding what the mission is really there to do, and everybody understanding their role and how it comes together. I think the second thing is within UN missions is the most, and perhaps my most difficult, is if you understand that, is how do you build the connections across the various parts of the mission? Because it's a little bit like a university that has the arts department and the engineering department, and the same thing with a mission. You have the human rights, and you have civil affairs, and you have political affairs, and then you have the whole department which runs the logistics of the organization as well. How do you bring that together? And that's very, very important, to be able to make sure that we're working across the organization as well as focusing on what we're on. And then the third thing, and I know this sounds kind of trite, is make decisions. I know leadership implies making decisions, but the UN is, and particularly the way that the UN works, and people that come through, they get to very, very senior leadership positions, and they've never made a decision. And I don't mean a decision about having another strategy or developing a strategy or having a workshop or whatever. That's not a decision, that's an output. I'm talking about decisions that will affect outcomes, and they are a different order of decision making. What you have to do there is actually you have to take a risk. You have to analyze the situation and take a risk so that you can get the best outcome. Creating another strategy is the safe way out. It's not the right way out. It's not going to help people at the end of the day. It may eventually help people, but you have to be able to make decisions. And I see too much of the UN not making decisions and drifting on, and people suffer as a result. It's always a dilemma, and it's a struggle, because obviously you're faced in a mission with things that are happening. They're happening all the time. And I sort of joked that even if I didn't have anything on my diary when I walked into the office in the morning, I can guarantee that by 9:30, something will have come through my door that will probably absorb pretty much my entire day, or at least half of it. And that's the case. I think it's, and therefore, as a result of that, because you're dealing with crises and mini crises and various things that are coming up, the ability to be able to have the space to be able to think a little further down the road, think a little more strategically, it gets lost sometimes in the noise of the moment. And I think, I think different people address this in different ways. And what I like to, the way I tried to do it anyway, was obviously you need to give you need to free yourself a little bit of that day to day. So you need to empower the people around you to be able to make sure that they're picking things up, so it's not coming to you, things that don't need to come to you. You need to be informed, and but you also need to you need to know that something is being done about that, and we're moving in this direction. And then de-link from it, because if you don't, you just get sucked down this hole of whatever the moment is. The second thing that we did, and I did a lot, it works for me, is that we brought in, usually on a weekend when people were a bit freer, people in to do a sort of a brainstorming session. We didn't do it all the time, but we did it every now and then. And we made this very informal. So we often brought NGOs in and other UN agencies. The military were not allowed to wear uniforms. Everybody was in, basically T-shirts and short sleeve shirts or whatever. It was casual, and there was no hierarchy, because in the UN, and particularly in peacekeeping missions, there's an inherent hierarchy. I speak, then my deputies speak, then it kind of clunks down. So I cut that out completely and said, I want everybody to chip in. And we had these really good discussions with people, and you realize that you've got an enormous pool of talent of people there that you're not hearing from because they don't speak up in a normal meeting, but here they've got something really ready to say. And it was that sort of thing that enabled us to sort of say, oh, okay, where are we going to be in 6 months' time? How are we going to develop this? How is the strategy going to evolve?